coming to you from Summonats 21. We've got a massive DVD for you guys this month, so let's take a look at what's coming up.
It's party time as we bring you all the crazy action from this year's Summonats in two massive features. Packing a huge 450 kilowatts to the rear wheels, Brendan shows us his awesome Street and Track CV8. Aaron Noonan talks us through the 2008 V8 supercar season. Our crew heads to the newly opened Champions Brock Experience. We take a look at one of the country's most customised VRs. We show you a turbo install on a V6 Commodore Youth. Our DIY runs through how to set up your workshop. We chat with tuning guru David Alexander from Silverwater Automotive Services. And last but not least, a mean VN wagon packing a 355 stroker. But coming up first is the blown and tubbed CV8 Monaro.
Friends and acquaintances, especially family, I'm the black sheep. Everybody else thinks that cars are just to get from A to B. I've always been a car freak. I've got the huge library of magazines at home. I always dreamed about what car I would end up with. I've had a few Walkinshaws, had an Ultima, which is like a kit car from England, and this is my final one. Hi, I'm Brendan and this is my Monaro.
The story of Brendan's menacing creation began humbly as the dream of the Star Workshop to construct a limited run of the ultimate Monaro. Before the menacing HRT 427 versions came to light, and due to popular US demand, General Motors had released around 500 Le Mans Corvette C5R blocks to the public for what they deemed civilian use.
I basically bought the car with the intention of going all out. Star Performance were talking about doing a limited run of what he called a Super Monaro, and mine was going to be the first.
With sheer hard work and determination and a fair bit of coin, Brendan saw one of these ultra desirable small blocks slotted between the chassis rails of his new CV8 Monaro.
If I go back to the start, I don't really think there is much that I would change. Turbos, of course, are more popular than the superchargers these days, but I prefer the look of the supercharger, the cleaner engine bay, etc.
Under the bonnet, Brendan combined the best of both worlds, with the horsepower factory installing the desirable C5R internals into a new Warhawk block. A steel-forged crankshaft which gives 4 inches of stroke pulls H-beam conrods. These support custom forged blower pistons, wrapped with Hastings rings. ARP studs and bearings are also part of the mechanical party. A 3.3 litre Whipple charger blows 14 psi through heavily ported and polished Nathan Higgins heads, while a Clive Cam's camshaft keeps check of valve timing.
It was dynoed before the current engine configuration at about 612, 615, but since then it's got Nathan Higgins heads and a different block and a different setup, so I'd like to think we've probably cracked 700 now at the back wheels.
Wasted fuel is then extracted through a set of 1.875-inch primaries before being forced back into the atmosphere once again through a pair of 3-inch stainless steel pipes and tips. This combo delivers a tasty 450 rear-wheel kilowatts and an estimated 1,000 Newton-meters of torque through the short ratio T56 gearbox and heavy-duty chromoly drive shaft with a CAS LSD out the back.
The most fun I've had in the car would be a weekend at Phillip Island. It's been set up for the circuit rather than the drags. Went down to a Phillip Island race day and had an absolute blast. The thing that blew me away, I always knew the car would be fast, but just how well the brakes worked. For a big car, it brakes fantastic.
Pulling up a track warrior like this requires some serious stopping equipment, and a massive AP racing brake setup outdoes itself in this area. Coloured yellow on black, these 6-piston front and 4-piston rear calipers are matched with 362mm and 330mm rotors respectively. These go hand in hand with the raunchy appeal of those massive polished Simmons FRs. Not only looking the goods, measuring 18 by 9.5 inches on the front and 18 by 11.5 at the rear, they truly mean business.
Yellow Monaros are fairly common, so I'd like to put just a few more splashes of colour, although I'll probably just stick with black. Bigger wheels, of course. Everybody likes the bigger wheels, so I might even put 20s on the back, keep the 18s on the front.
With enough guts to support 1200 horsepower at the flywheel, a Harrop dry sump, along with a header tank and twin Bosch 044 pumps, result in fuel and oil delivery that never misses a beat, which is crucial during extreme cornering. The roll cage extends to all extremities of the cabin and is matched with recoloured and retrimmed Recaro seats. Unfortunately for many, Star's Monaro dream never eventuated, and as such, Brendan's CV8 stands as a rare and desirable reminder as to what might have been. Not only does the car possess mountains of grunt, but the prowess that this car commands should be admired as a modern interpretation of Australian muscle.
After the break, part 1 of the Summonats action.
www.streetcommodores.com is your one-stop place for everything Commodore on the web. Sit down, log in, and hang on, because the Street Commodores website is full on. Where else can you read your favourite articles, watch the latest videos, download top quality images, and hang out with over 30,000 like-minded Commodore fanatics? There's info about upcoming events, the latest news, regularly updated features, and a forum chock-a-block full of info. You can also subscribe to the magazine or sign up to receive the Street Commodores newsletter, which puts you in the running to win awesome prizes. The Street Commodores website is constantly changing, so if you don't check it regularly, you'll miss out. Without a doubt, Summonats is definitely not an event to leave off your calendar. Now clocking over 21 successful years, the 2008 celebrations were looking to be huge, and you guessed it, we were there to capture all the action. Much of the crowd took a laid-back approach to the weekend, enjoying many of the day's events either roadside or right in the thick of things, as close to the action as possible. The focus for the weekend was very simply noise, noise, and more noise. If it was loud and proud, then the Summonats weekend was the time to see it. Some of Australia's best Commodores featured strongly in just about every variety of model and setup, ranging from early girls to V8, turbo, and even classic HDT and HSV.
What's in store for the rest of the weekend?
A bit of partying. Yeah.
Few late nights?
Oh, I'd say so. Yeah, I had a late night last night, so some drinking, late nights, lots of burnouts. Yeah, cruising. Just keep going strong, I think. Keep drinking and keep watching the smoke just pour out. Unreal.
Sunday's burnout competition was intense to say the least, with runner-up Shannon Pedersen starting proceedings by letting loose in his massive blown VK. Not only was the presence of General Motors outstanding in the burnouts, their tyre-melting capabilities were out of this world. With just so many breathtaking burnout cars entered in the competition this year, it seemed that as close to the burnout pad as possible was the best place to be at this year's Summonats. Most of the Commodore variety excelled out on the pad, including tidy VKs and ultra tough VLs. I'm excited didn't let the crowd down either, yet one Ford did get a little hot under the collar. This VK was extremely steady and consistent on the pad, and was followed by a few tough Holden utes pluming smoke high into the stratosphere. Defective also gave it all it had, along with recent feature car, Gassed. Every year is surprising, and with the burnout event growing more and more popular, it seems competitors continue to get the right formulas for building top contenders. There's definitely no questioning some of the rubber burning abilities in most of this year's events, including the Burnout Comp. Out in force and fitting this category were some super tough VNs. Capping off a great turnout on the pad, VK671 returned this year, smoking up his famous coloured tyres. Some of the cars scattered throughout the showgrounds were also absolute stunners. Just take a look at the detail under some of these bonnets. Street Commodores managed to spot something of interest just about everywhere, including on the back streets and out in the thick of the crowd. Sightings included this bizarre land boat, live bands, strange barbecue attire, and this wild jet-powered hatch. The ever-popular Miss Summernats was standing room only and held in the main stage. This year's entrants were competing for prizes to the value of over $10,000, and of course, for the privilege to represent Summernats for the remainder of the year. Deserving her 2008 Miss Summernats crown was our very own Cruise for Charity 5 Northern Territory Coordinator, Alina Leal. Revving up the crowd, Alina promised that she would compete in the burnout competition in her Stroker VR V8 ute at next year's Summernats.
I'm here with Cal and his massive VH. Now, Cal, this thing is mental. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's still 3.0 bottom end, 308 crank, V in heads obviously, solid roller in it, just 4Gs, H-beam rods, 871, 25 pounds of boost.
25 pounds of boost?
Yeah, and blown alcohol.
And how much power does she make, mate?
About 1,060 now. So
that's absolutely mental power. Now, mate, how long has she been in the build? I know it's been coming for a while.
It's a year for that motor since this time last year, since I canned the last motor here.
The dirt was flying and the cars were screaming in one of the favourites on the day, the Motorcana. This year the event ran for an extended period of time, which, for the punters, was a rare treat. There was rarely a lineup of cars, which meant ample opportunities to give the grass a generous hammering. Drivers took their cars to the edge, enjoying plenty of sideways fun on the very slippery grass. This interesting selection of detailed vehicles were crowd pleasers, as was this VH that carved it up in both directions. Taking into account just how sideways the different selection of vehicles were, the slalom on the grass and racing against the clock was what it was really all about.
Boys, you've been having a few drinks here. Summer Nats 21. What is your favourite part of Summer Nats?
Smell of the smoke. Burnouts.
Just getting on it with the boys.
And don't forget the tits.
Boobs, burnouts and booze.
Getting drunk and watching burnouts. Mate, the women, the cars, the atmosphere, the people.
Yeah, the V8's pretty good.
they're all right.
It's got to be an 8. It's got to be an 8. None of this falls.
This, mate, on the streety like this.
Just
Relaxing, having a couple of beers, watching the cars go by, just being a part of the event. Big event.
Soaking it up, feeling the cars, enjoying the atmosphere, it's all good.
What do you like about Summer Nats? We're out on the show and shine. What's your favourite car here today?
It'd have to definitely be the Monaro.
You love the Monaro?
Definitely.
Mate, I'm just dumbfounded today. It's brilliant. The amount of good cars here and the quality of the paintwork and just the way these guys put so much effort into the cars, man. It's awesome.
Show and Shine was once again dominated by some of Australia's most impressive Commodores. The cars range from early girls, second generation, Monaros, HDT, HSV, and just about everything in between. Blinding polished alloy, chrome and ultra high gloss paintwork reflected nothing but high quality automotive enthusiasm throughout the display. Don't go away, as there'll be more Summer Nats action coming right up.
When we return, Aaron Noonan heads trackside to talk about the V8 supercar season.
Rodney? Where's your father, sweetheart?
He's at the shops.
Check this out.
With over 10,000 great value ideas for your car, garage and shed, you just can't get enough of Super Cheap Auto.
Everything auto, much more.
Well, it's a big year of the V8 Supercar Championship Series coming up in 2008, and it's all started with pre-season testing and the first few rounds at the Clipsal 500 at Eastern Creek in Sydney and the Hamilton Street Race in New Zealand. Now, if you're a Commodore fan, and if you've bought this, I'm guessing you are, then you're looking to see what's different in 2008. And the answer is there's a lot different up and down pit lane for the Holden teams. Well, the first and the biggest change is with last year's championship team, the HSV dealer team. Garth Tander no longer with the squad. He's moved to the Holden racing team to join Mark Scaife. So with the HSV dealer team, Rick Kelly stays on board car number 15 with backing from Toll and Opus Prime, but he has a new teammate. Paul Dumbrell moves from the Super Cheap team and brings Autobahn sponsorship for the number 16 car that Garth Tander drove to last year's championship. Behind the scenes, there's a new team manager in Eric Pender and new engineers also for both drivers. Alistair McVeigh joins from Holden Racing Team to engineer for Rick Kelly. Meanwhile, for Paul Dumbrell, Richard Holway switches from red to Autobahn green and black. But perhaps the biggest change for Holden fans in the off-season is right here, Team Red, the Holden Racing Team. New look cars this year, they're not just red, they're red and white. We've got a new look driver and he's not too bad either. Defending champ Garth Tander joins from the HSV dealer team. He also brings backing from Toll, who support the Holden Racing Team this year, as well as Rick Kelly's HSV car. So Tander joins Mark Scaife, not for the first time. They drove together in the endurance races at Sandown and Bathurst in 2006. 5 championships for Scaife, 1 for Garth Tander. No doubt that he wants to keep number 1 on the side of his car. There's changes behind the scenes too. Rob Crawford, team manager at HSV, has also moved to Holden Racing Team, and Tander's brought some other friends from the engineering squad at his HSV team. Matthew Nielsen, his engineer for the last few years, will be on the headsets of car number 1 this year. A brand new chassis for Garth Tander and a car for Mark Scaife that made its debut at Phillip Island last year. Now, the Holden Racing Team has not won the championship since 2002, when they'd won 3 in a row with Mark Scaife. But given it's 5 years since their last success, 2008 is their best opportunity. So while there's big changes at some of the other teams for Holden this year, Tasman Motorsport, there's not a great deal different. Greg Murphy, Jason Richards, a pair of Kiwis back for another year. There's some brand new cars for this team who built 2 new VEs last year. There's also a new sponsor. Sprint Gas Racing is what the team will be known for the next 3 seasons. And with Jeff Gretsch now calling the shots, the former Holden Racing team manager, they're in for big things this year. Last year, both cars didn't finish in the top 10 in the championship. They'll be looking to change that in 2008. Well, one team that we thought was gone at the end of last year was PWR Racing, but in a last-minute deal, they're back for 2008. A single-car Commodore team this time around, Cam McConville and Paul Umbrella gone, as to his super cheap auto. But young Andrew Thompson steps up from the Fujitsu series to drive the car that McConville drove last year. The Valvoline Gary Rogers Motorsport team have some changes for 2008. One of the constants is Lee Holdsworth, who of course won a round at Oran Park last year. But in car 34, Dean Canto is out, Michael Caruso is in. He was Ford Rising Stars man in the Fujitsu series last year, finished second in that championship. But perhaps the biggest change for the team this year is under the bonnet. They now have a Walkinshaw Performance engine deal, which hopefully can push their cars a little bit further to the front. Well, there's a new face in the main championship series who's not a new face to V8 supercars. Fujitsu Series champ Tony D'Alberto steps up for this year. He's got an ex-Holden Racing Team car running under the Rod Nash franchise. It's going to be tough for the youngster, but he's been driving V8 supercars since he was 17. One of the big changes this year in terms of Holden teams is Todd Kelly. He's gone from being a red man at Holden Racing Team to being a black man at Jack Daniels Racing. He's driving for Larry Perkins this year to team up with Shane Price, but that means that Jack Perkins is out of a drive. He steps back into the Fujitsu V8 Supercar Series to allow Todd Kelly's experience to try to move the Larry Perkins team back up the order. There's a brand new car coming for Todd in season 2008, and it's Shane Price's second full season in the main game. Perhaps the most excited team for 2008 is one that's joining the Holden ranks this year. After 8 years as a Ford Falcon team, Team BOC, Brad Jones Racing make the move to Commodores this year. Cameron McConville joins from PWR Racing to be reunited with Andrew Jones. They drove together at Gary Rogers' team a few years ago, and their hardware's pretty good too. 2 ex-Holden Racing Team cars with support from Walkinshaw Performance. Cam McConville's in the car that Mark Scaife used to win at Eastern Creek last year, and Andrew Jones is driving the car that Todd Kelly used throughout season 2007. There's a change in engineering. Wally Story joins from Tasman to be reunited with Cameron McConville, and this is a team that's heading back towards the top 10. So there you have it, that's how 2008 is shaping up for the Holden teams. Lots of changes up and down pit lane, lots of changes in the championship. 14 rounds plus a non-title race at the Australian Grand Prix in Albert Park. Of course you can see all the action on 7, but the question is, who from Holden can make it 3 championships in a row? Rick Kelly in 06, Garth Tander in 07, who's it going to be in 08?
Next up, we head to North Queensland to check out Champions Brock Experience.
Simply purchase a 10-issue subscription or subscription extension to Street Commodores for $99.50 and you'll also receive a free 5-issue subscription to Extreme Holdens worth $39.75. To take up this great offer or to check out other awesome subscription offers including huge discounts and free gifts, just go to www.streetcommodores.com.
We've been without Peter Brock for over a year now,
but thankfully his good mate Peter Champion has taken his legacy and turned it into Champion's Brock Experience. It's an amazing spectacle, so let's go inside and take a look.
Boasting the largest collection of Peter Brock race and road cars in the country, Street Commodores was privileged to attend the opening of the incredible Champions Brock Experience on the 15th of December 2007. The museum's inception began when Peter Champion, who first met Peter Brock at a charity dinner, sparked a close friendship with the Bathurst hero. Peter Brock was so thrilled with Champion's 15-year collection of cars and memorabilia that he urged Peter Champion to display the items to the public. This set the ball rolling for a museum, and before long a new complex was filling up fast with memorabilia, restored race cars and road cars. Also regularly visiting during the build was Peter Brock, adding his own personal items to the collection. With 15 years of collecting and nearly 5 years in the developmental stage, Champion's Brock Experience is home to many displays covering just about every facet of Peter Brock's career.
Right, I'm here with Peter Champion, who has created this amazing place, Champion's Brock Experience. Now, Peter, why? You've got all these amazing cars in one place. What drove you to create this place?
I guess it's a passion of mine was Commodores. I love Commodores. I wasn't a Brocky fan. I was a Commodore fan.
These displays include a collection of race attire including the old Marlboro HDT items, a Scape Winfield Commodore, Stefan's pink boat, a MiG jet, motorbikes, Brock's favourite car, the 600 horsepower Bob Jane Monza. This coupled with a sound and light show is sure to give you goosebumps.
I'm here with the great Alan Moffat. Now Alan, you've made the trek up to Yeppoon to check out the Brock Museum. What are your thoughts on it? Is it a fitting tribute to Brock?
It's extremely fitting, and my full compliments to Peter Champion and his wife Sandy and their family for going to so much trouble. You don't pull something like this down out of the sky.
Peter Champion, James Brock and Ron Bentley were also responsible for this special moving tribute for Peter Brock, which was building a replica of his first race car, the famous Austin A30. Many will remember this rebuild long before the museum's inception, when Murray Walker was taken by Brock around the Bathurst circuit in the car in 1997. The Feral Ute was also there that both Champion and Brock desert raced in, along with the freshly restored VK Big Banger that the duo also took to the Goodwood Festival of Speed in England.
I just thought, if I'm going to have a few road cars and a couple of old race cars in the shed, why don't I try and get the whole line of the cars? And we've gone pretty close. There's a few missing there, but they're coming out of the woodwork now.
Immediately imperative and often forgotten information from the track is presented, and though a small number of vehicles are replicas, the most emotive and iconic are genuine race cars from the time, lovingly restored and displayed together side by side with their road-going equivalents. Visitors on the day were able to meet with Peter Champion and Lewis Brock, who all had some amazing stories to tell. Many HDT road car owners stated that they had headed home with a newfound respect for their vehicles. In accordance with Peter Brock's documented vision, Peter Champion also purchased the HDT Special Vehicles business in August 2007.
You've got most of the race cars that Brock drove during his career. What's your favourite?
Look, I'd have to say all of them.
One car in particular in this collection has quite some interesting history with you and Brock, and we're standing in front of it. The 1986 Group A VK. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the situation with that car?
Well, I was out of work and Peter asked me to join his team when I say I was out of work there in 1985. CAMS changed the rules and we went to Group A. Mazda didn't have a Group A car, so I was a television commentator. And Peter contacted me towards the end of 85 and said, I'd like you to drive with me. And it was one of the best years of my life. I think the highlight was winning the King's Cup in the Spa 24 Hours. Did extremely well there with the highest placed team finish. Peter and I won our first race together, the Wellington 500. That was rather a pleasure. I said to him after the race, We should have started this a lot sooner, Amigo.
The museum is an experience not to be missed. Peter Champion has done an incredible job and isn't finished.
There's a few gaps here. It might take away a good look, but hey, I can always hang them from the roof, can't I?
No doubt the museum will evolve and improve with further items to be added in the future. It truly is a world-class attraction and a living legacy to an Australian icon and motorsport legend, Peter Brock.
Coming up after the break, we hit the streets in a seriously modified VR Calais.
Where in the world do you find someone who knows everything there is to know about batteries and portable power accessories? Someone you can rely on for all the right advice. Battery World, of course. Cars, boats, bikes, anything. If it relies on a battery, rely on the experts. Battery World. Phone 13 17 60.
If I had to start again, I would not change a single thing except the order in which I did things. I would do this from the start instead of chopping and changing along the way.
The vaunted and often thrown around word custom can be easily lost and misinterpreted by many. This gobsmacking VR Calais, however, makes that word look tired and old school. There's no doubt that the VR is an eye-catcher, and to mention all the custom work that's been put into it would probably require another feature.
I think the point that I decided to go all out was when the lady decided to run up the arse of the car and cause a fair bit of damage.
The car's inception began with a disastrous shunt to the rear by a four-wheel drive, which resulted in repairs being carried out. This is when the ball started rolling, with a fresh idea hatched for the already VZ-kitted VR. Coated over the car and then pinstriped with a unique grey marble was a combo from the House of Colour range of orange two-tone with Tashan purple. This scheme was then separated by the unique grey marble you see. This turned out to be a great look for an already stunning car that was then set off by its height and stance adjustment.
The most memorable moment with the car was when I used it in my wedding. Hobbies, do a little bit of kickboxing every now and then, and I like tinkering around with my car.
After the paint had set, new 20-inch Da Vinci Rangos were fitted with Toyo 225 3520 rubber. Unfortunately for owner Troy, another mishap was just around the corner, with the wiring and setup of the 3.8 litre V6. When the nitrous was accidentally set to constantly armed, the engine was turned over and the engine block was virtually destroyed. Troy decided that despite the damage from this dilemma, he was going to keep the V6 and go for a rebuild. This saw the motor fitted with a 4.3 litre stroker setup and a pacemaker exhaust system.
When I do take it out, the public love it. I've got old people coming up to me, complimenting me on it. I've got young kids, little kids, 4 or 5 years old, pointing it out to their parents. It's great.
Black carpet inside sets off the trim work, which runs all the way from the boot to the centre console, all wrapped in buttermilk leather. Matching interior pieces like door trims, door cards, rear seats, interior plastics, and of course the standard steering wheel have also been colour matched. Scrounge around some more inside and you'll find miniature LEDs scattered along the roof lining next to the HRT logo and the PS2 that's also been hidden in there.
Won quite a few awards with it. Best interior, best paint, best install, best 6-cylinder, best Commodore, various shows that I went to, yeah.
That's right.
I've always been a car freak. Bought my first car at 14, I think I was. Bought a Holden Piranha. Started with a Holden, going in with a Holden. The car feels really good on the road, sits nice and low to the road, handles beautifully, and there's enough power there when you need it.
Troy's passion for great audio systems wasn't overlooked either. Along with the PS2, an 80 gig iPod sits in a custom dock. Front and rear pods house Infinity Beta 6 woofers, MB Quad 4-inch splits are in the front doors, and Focal CV165s are in the rear. A number of screens call a cabin home, one in either headrest and a massive 15.2-inch flip-down screen mounted to the roof. Powering this setup are 3 Eclipse amps. The magic continues into the boot, where 2 nitrous bottles are colour matched to the exterior, and those 3 Eclipse amps are neatly stacked on interior matching suede.
When I was told that my car was going to be featured in the magazine, I was ecstatic. I've worked hard to try and get cars before into magazines, and it just something's gone wrong every single time. So when this opportunity came up, it was beautiful.
Let's ride.
Despite taking home awards for Best Holden 6 at the Brock Memorial Cruise and Best Custom Paint at Spinfest, Troy is looking for a supercharger for the VR. He wants 450 horsepower and says he won't stop till he gets it.
Don't go away, because when we return, we take a look at a turbo install on a Commodore V6.
Getting yourself motivated isn't always that easy. When you've got 20 of your mates around you, that's all the motivation you need.
Well, here it is, guys, a nice, neat, clean VS Ute running the new VE GDS 20s. Great looking car. There's one problem though. It's only running a standard Ecotec V6 under the bonnet. So let's watch the guys from ProFlow Fabrications fit up a turbocharger and turn it into the ultimate street sleeper.
The first job is to strip the vehicle of its ancillaries, including the intake system and airbox. Only a few screws need to be removed to loosen up the intake pipe and base of the airbox. Next, you will need to make your way around to the top and bottom radiator hoses to unscrew and loosen them so that the engine can be drained of all coolant. The coil pack needs to be relocated, so the leads are removed and the coil pack is then unbolted. Next up, the power steering reservoir is removed, along with the serpentine belt which comes free after a bit of a jiggle. Removing a couple more screws and clips is all it takes for the radiator fan and the radiator itself to be removed. Then unplug the coil pack wiring. The radiator and radiator fan should be put aside while completing the next stage of operations. Once the coil pack wiring is removed and all the leads are free, the coil pack should be ready to remove from its bracket. Spares are then back in the engine bay to unscrew the aircon hoses. This is only done after all the gases have been professionally removed. A new bracket is required to relocate the coil pack, and once that is in place, the factory exhaust manifolds and exhaust can begin to be unbolted. These bolts can be quite tough to remove because of the seal the headers have to the heads themselves. Some of these bolts require access from the bottom of the vehicle, so it goes up on the hoist. Once the manifolds are off, the water inlet is removed from the intake manifold. Some drilling will be required for new fittings, so firstly a hole is drilled and then tapped in the thermostat housing. Another new fitting will be required on the sump. As you can see, it's a lot easier to work on it if you've removed it from the car. You simply need to drill a new hole and then tap it to suit the new fitting. An adapter is used at the oil pressure sensor location for the oil feed. Now is when the new turbo manifolds can meet the engine. These are bolted to the heads in place of the old headers, with new gaskets and then fastened into place. With limited space, you'll also need to relocate the washer bottle. As you can see, the second piece of the manifold now curves around to the front of the engine. With new gaskets fitted, the Garrett GT3540 Turbo is bolted to the new manifold. With the turbo bolted down, you can now fit up your new oil and water lines. The hoses can now be refitted and the coil pack can be mounted to its new location. The kit includes custom leads, which neatly fit up to the new location, but make sure that they run to the correct firing order locations. Before the work began, it was a V6 in full factory specification, but with these few modifications having taken place, I'm sure you'll agree that this is certainly on its way to making much more usable power.
Alright guys, we've run out of time this month. We've got the turbo mounted up. Stay tuned because next time we'll plumb up the turbo, take the ute out to the track with the hope of a low 11 or maybe even a high 10. I'll just take this opportunity to thank George at ProFlow Fabrications for having us here today and showing us his great new turbo kit. We'll catch you next time.
Up next, Liam shows that setting up your workshop can be an easy DIY.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Where have you been?
Nowhere.
You've been to Super Cheap Auto again, haven't you?
No, I haven't. No.
How come you can't close the door?
Can? No.
With over 10,000 great value ideas for your car garage and shed, you just can't get enough with Super Cheap Auto.
Everything auto, much, much more.
Now this should be the perfect workshop, guys. We've got plenty of bench space, we've got street Commodores posted all over the walls. Unfortunately though, we've got no tools. Thanks to Super Cheap Auto though, it's now cheaper and easier to deck your workshop out with all the right bits. Enough talking, let's go shopping. Hand tools are good, nice and simple. For big jobs, cutting, sanding, that kind of stuff, you're going to want some power tools. Alright, so we've just gotten back from Super Cheap Auto and we bought all this good gear with us. Now if you need to tidy up your workshop before you get started, you might want to consider either throwing stuff out or giving it to a charity if it's in good working order. As you can see, we didn't need to tidy our workshop, it's in pretty tip-top shape, which means we can get straight on with the fun stuff.
While the more recent plastic wrapping may be overboard, it does serve a purpose of protecting your tools, but may require the use of a Stanley knife. It is also a great idea to know where your tools are going by grouping them into areas before you unpack them. It never hurts to ask yourself questions about your setup, such as, are all frequently used items within easy reach? Is the work area set up to prevent ergonomic injuries like twisting or stretching? Is there adequate space for moving around? And finally, has the area been safeguarded against noise, hazardous substances, welding, manual handling, passageways, stairs, ladders and health issues related to fumes? With the amount of tools here and the potential for work, your workbench should always be considered. If you have an adjustable bench or are building a fixed bench version, a change in height of even 20mm up or down can make a big difference. To easily measure your height, use the distance from the floor to your wrist and match your workbench height to this. Now that the tools are unloaded, let's go have a look at them.
Now, a decent set of files is always handy lying around the workshop, great for smoothing off cuts and generally shaping metal. Now the most important thing to remember when you're buying a set of spanners is to buy them in a heavy duty chrome finish because it means they're going to last longer, they're going to be a stronger product, which at the end of the day is what we're all after. You've basically got your three types of spanners: conventional ring and open-ended spanner. Your pipe spanner is good for working on stuff like brake lines where you need that little extra leverage to allow you to twist off the nut without burring the end of it. And then your ratchet spanner is great for lazy people, generally handy to have lying around the workshop. Of course, we've got the hammer, an essential tool for all workshops. Back here, you've got the bench grinder. On this scale, really only good for light fabrication work. Of more use to us is going to be sharpening drill bits and sharpening chisels, which is going to save us money. So a bench vise this size is all we're really going to need in a workshop setup like ours. Primarily used for holding material in place while you say cut or drill. So the most important thing to do when buying your socket set is to buy in a big kit like this, which is going to give you the ultimate variety. Obviously when you're working on your Commodore, you're going to be using metric sockets with a 1/2-inch ratchet. And one of the most versatile tools in the entire workshop is the air compressor, and with the right array of attachments, you can make this thing do pretty much anything. We've got a socket extension, air chisel, air drill, the air blower, and obviously the die grinder. Pretty much sets you up to do whatever you want. Another necessity for every workshop, a good cordless drill. Now if you're intending to do any work under the car, you're going to need a good quality jack and jack stands. Now the most important thing with this pair is that they're properly load rated, and with the jack at 2.5 tonne and the axle stands at 1200 kilo each, you're going to be pretty right. And everything here is extremely affordable, and the best bit is you don't have to get it all at once. With a setup like this from Supercheap, you can ensure that every time you open the shed door, you have the right tool for the job.
After the break, we talk to Dave Alexander from SAS.
Warning, the following scenes will excite some viewers. For that hard-throbbing, race-bred, ride, handling and maximum street appeal, you need Pedder's Sports Rider Suspension for your car. Sports Rider Suspension from Pedder's. Lowered appeal, unbelievable feel, no bull.
Dave Alexander is a well-known name in the Commodore scene, being the owner of Silverwater Automotive Services and one of the most prospective tuners in the business. He has worked on numerous high-profile Commodores, and we managed to get him off the dyno and sit down for a chat with street Commodores.
Right, I'm here with Dave from Silverwater Automotive Services. Now Dave, you've been in the industry for over 20 years. Can you tell us how you got your start?
I did my apprenticeship at Holden dealer. It was Les Bag Holden back then. It's now Barry Smith Holden in Pennant Hills. I went on to work at this Brad's Speed Shop back then in Granville. And that's where I got into the dyno tuning side. I sort of got the crash course in dyno tuning. Here's the on switch. This is a dyno, tune the car. That was fun. If you want to learn something, work out how to do it yourself, and then you've pretty much, you're covered then. I went into partnership with a friend of mine for a while. That didn't work out. We went our separate ways, and I went looking for a place on my own, and ended up here.
What made you decide to concentrate on modified cars and modifying cars?
Oh, I've always liked to modify things and make them go better. I think even before I started my apprenticeship, I was putting engines on the push bike and building go-karts and silly things like that, tuning my father's lawnmower as a kid, pulling things apart to see how they worked and see if I make them better. It's just some satisfaction in making improvements to something.
What was it that made you focus on the tuning of cars specifically?
I focused more on the tuning side. I guess that's just the way it happened. You get to tie the package together at the end of it. You can build a brilliant engine and have the best exhaust and the best intake, but unless the final package is all tied together in the setup and the tuning, the final stage, then the package doesn't reach its full potential.
Now you've tuned a lot of high-profile cars, and one of the most high-profile was Brett Wayne's Rapid 8. Can you tell us a little bit about the development of that car and how it all came together?
A lot of experience helps. At the end of the day, it's just an engine in a car, but when you're working with those extremes, your gut instinct and experience can make a difference when you're braking an engine and holding back and going, knowing something's not quite right. Yeah, you really lean on previous experience for that sort of thing. You're still working within the same parameters. You're still fuel and timing, exhaust temperatures, maintaining a safe environment around the car and keeping an eye on everything. Because if something's going to go wrong with 100 horsepower at the tyres, it's not so much of a drama. If something breaks or goes wrong when you've got 1,000, 1,500 horsepower at the tyres, it gets a bit dramatic. I had a strap brake tuning Brett's car here. We had 6 straps holding it on, and one to brake scared the crap out of me. But we were experimenting with transmissions, and for the tuning we did on it here, we were running through an automatic transmission. And, he was given a speedway box to try if we had any problems with the auto. And we were chasing some extra power at the tyres. Automatic transmissions do consume more power than a manual transmission if you're measuring at the rear wheels. So we bolted in a speedway box, and it was actually on Jake's performance dyno. We ran it up, and we've made, from memory, it was about 1,500, something just over 1,500. It will be back. It's been the body's been modified now, so it can actually be taken out of the drags and get some of this power to the ground. So he's doing the rear end of the car. And I expect to see a little bit more power out of it too, a bit down the track. We haven't stopped on the project. Something to look forward to in the future. Seeing that car back, it's not finished yet. Satisfaction, I guess. When you get your crowd-pleasing satisfaction, making a big horsepower number at some of that is fun. It's quite a big buzz at the time. Personal satisfactions can be me just in the back office realising that I can read some information out of an ECU. I see it changing dramatically. Maybe not instant change, but I think it will have to change dramatically over the course of time. We may all be rewinding electric motors in the future, I don't know, but it has to change. The price of fuel will drive a lot of people out of this market, and they'll be looking for alternatives. Cars will change. Over the next 5 to 10 years, I think we'll see a very dramatic change in the type of motor vehicles we're driving.
What was your first car?
The first car I actually bought was an XB Falcon Coupe.
No, it's a classic. It's all right. Dave Alexander, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for speaking to me. Stay tuned, because when we return, we check out a super tough VN wagon.
You know, classics come in all shapes and sizes, just like motoring enthusiasts. You don't need to be a member of a car club to be an enthusiast. You don't need to have champagne tastes. You just need a wee bit of motoring passion. Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts, whatever car they drive. If you're an enthusiast, call Shannon's on 1346 46.
If you think wagons aren't your style, then this homegrown VN might just change your mind. Perfectly suited to the track or the street, the originally white VN 5-litre definitely gets its fair share of appreciation every time it hits the streets.
I'm Daniel, this is my VN wagon. I've owned the car for about 7 years. Feels awesome, it drives really well, it's got heaps of torque, it's really responsive, it's good fun. When we first bought this girl, she was just a standard ballooner, hubcaps, weather strips, weather shields, it had everything. It's completely stock.
The first thing you notice about the VN is the Hornet scoop. This supplies air into a 5-inch filter and an 1100 CFM injection perfection 4-barrel throttle body that's bolted to a torque power dual plane manifold. With ported factory heads and a 355 cubic inch bottom end, Daniel got the compression ratio up to 12.5 to 1 by fitting hypereutectic pistons. High compression and a 292-degree crane hydraulic cam give the engine a mean idle. The exhaust starts with a set of pacemaker extractors that lead into twin cats and a twin 2.5-inch mandrel bend system. At the time of the shoot, Daniel hadn't run the current combination on the dyno, yet previous visits with the old setup saw it make 320 rear-wheel horsepower, so you can imagine it'll make even more.
Mechanical setbacks have been heaps. It took us forever to get the crankshaft to fit correctly. The gearbox has been in and out I don't know how many times. The diff's been out I don't know how many times. It's been great fun.
Underneath the car, the factory Turbo 700 was rebuilt using B&M internals and a custom-made valve body. Fronted by a 3500 RPM TCE stall converter, the power is delivered to the tyres via a Borg-Warner 4-pinion limited slip diff with 3.9 to 1 gears.
Car in the magazine's like a little boy's dream. Everyone wants to build a car, have it in a magazine, so to finally happen is awesome.
When it came time to refinish the body, Daniel decided to go for subtle enhancements rather than a big attention-grabbing body kit. Now featuring smooth body lines on the front guards, bonnet and tailgate, he also had the rear quarters pumped to give the wagon a more muscular appearance and removed the rear wiper and added the extra exhaust cutout. The smooth panels were then saturated in HSB Sting Red, resulting in an ultra clean finish which was complemented by Altezza taillights and an all-round tint job.
I drive this thing now as much as I can. I used to drive it every day of the week. It was an everyday driver. I bought a work kit for work, so it sort of sits in the garage now Monday to Friday. Everyone loves it. My neighbours hate it, but that's their problem.
On the inside, the factory VN interior was turfed in favour of a VXSS trim and an Auto-Technica steering wheel. An array of autometer gauges are mounted in the dash and on the bonnet, while an auto gauge monster tacho sits on the dash, telling Daniel how hard the engine is working. Also, because he likes his tunes, a VDO head unit, Sony amps, 6x9s and a pair of Venom subwoofers were also added.
The hardest thing about building this thing was pulling it apart 3 times.
The suspension setup, while being kept simple, gives the car a tough stance and a ride more capable of handling the power increase.
Most memorable moment, I got asked to do a little tyre spin for a wedding, and we did it about 8 times. The bride and groom were very upset. I loved it.
Keeping the overall cost down, the wheels are a set of Holden steel chasers. Yet to add more rubber on the back, the rears have been widened to accommodate a set of 265 50-15s. And with that in mind, he couldn't go too much bigger with the brakes, so a set of VT rotors and calipers were fitted to the front, while the rears were left standard.
Public reaction when I drive this, a lot of people look twice. It's not a VN sedan like every other Commodore on the road, I suppose. If I go back to start, I wouldn't change anything, because everything that's happened to this car has happened to where it is today. If I changed one thing, it wouldn't be what it is today. This intention when we first bought it was just to be a family car, to ferry the kids around. That was about it.
Last year, the wagon clocked an impressive 55,000 kilometres of both road and track driving. And even though this is a potentially quick car, it just goes to show that it's daily driven and enjoyed. What more could you want out of a highly practical and exceptionally quick street Commodore?
Stick around, because right after the break, we're heading back to the Summernats.
By signing up to the Street Commodores newsletter, you'll be ahead of the pack when it comes to the latest news, event info, what's on the forums, and a sneak preview of what's in the next issue. It's easy to sign up. Just head to www.streetcommodores.com and follow the links to the newsletter page. There you can tell us a little more about yourself, and when you hit the submit button, you've instantly put yourself into the running to win great prizes each and every month. Go on, what are you waiting for? Whether you were from Burke or Benalla, the trip to Summernats 21 was a truly rewarding experience. Once again, it was a non-stop feast for the senses. Seeing and hearing the nation's toughest street cars, as well as smelling and tasting the rubber, was only a small part of the massive horsepower weekend. The 105,000 strong crowd braved the heat alongside New Year's hangovers to take in the sight of hundreds of customised vehicles. As you can see, the quality of some of these vehicles was nothing short of exceptional. mod is becoming one of the event's biggest draw cards. Some tough Commodores performed this year in the Horsepower Heroes Shootout. As per the rules, vehicles had to make back-to-back runs within 2 minutes of each other to qualify. VL turbos were not absent from the competition either. This 384.8 horsepower machine represented its breed with pride, leaving in its trail some mighty impressive consecutive runs. This insane Tirana showed us a tyre-melting 1011.8 horsepower. Soon enough, it was time for Blow 402 to make its way onto the rollers. This monster had made some whopping 1200 plus horsepower runs in 07, and we were eagerly awaiting its return to the rollers. Approaching its second run, the power spike dropped dramatically as Blow 402's turbo was obliterated. The Mr. PSI VUSS was another vehicle with a load of top equipment on board, and it didn't disappoint either. With a twin-turbo small block Chev, the Monster VU managed a jaw-dropping 1590.9 and a best of 1713 horsepower. It was then time for the much-loved Tryhard to roll up. But was it enough to be the overall Horsepower Heroes winner? The ute that followed also wore some threatening-looking turbos. Unwinding its power, it threw a drive shaft during its run. The mind-blowing 1939.7 horsepower was not taken into account, as there had not been 2 or more consecutive runs from the WB ute. Therefore, the overall win was handed to Craig and the Horsepower Factory for their 1895.7 horsepower. Our EMG stand was absolutely flat out, with customers hungry for more of a horsepower fix. Live bands also entertained much of the huge crowd. Another favourite on the day was the Iwata airbrush display, which was wall-to-wall with outstanding airbrush demonstrations and artwork. Commodores are always well represented in the Go-to-Woe event, and 2008 was no exception. Some awesome machines let their tyres fry, while others took it seriously as a race against the clock. The Go-to-Woe looked to be great fun, with plenty of owners mashing the pedals to be the quickest from point to point. There were good starts and bad starts, owners trying to minimise wheel spin and keep their power to the ground. Go-to-Woe time, as usual, turned into a bit of a free-for-all. Just take a look at these insane machines giving it up on the strip. The Saturday night Super Cruise is the pinnacle of the event, with top-notch cars from all over the country taking to the main arena. We saw an enormous turnout of early girls, classics, powerhouses, and even hot rods strutting their stuff, much to the crowd's enjoyment. A multitude of different vehicles from daily drivers to showstoppers were all out there in force on the main arena. No matter where we looked, the crowd was thick and vast, ranging from toddlers, teenagers and families to older enthusiasts. Punters managed to envelop just about every Summer Nats moment throughout the weekend. It proved impossible not to be gobsmacked by the amount of feature quality vehicles making their rounds of the arena, and as you can see, the organised procession didn't disappoint. Each fastidiously presented car was followed by another, and the drive-by entrants just seemed to multiply throughout the night. The selection of show-stopping vehicles out on display was mind-boggling, with various different vehicles taking their time driving around the main arena to the cheering of the massive crowd. The weekend had turned into a perfect addition to the New Year's break as the partying just kept on going day and night. Soon the events exploded out onto the cruise track, where many of the highly modified vehicles took the time to parade around the 3-kilometre winding road. Damien Lowe's VB Commodore Chubby shone in the judges' eyes, not only winning Best Overall Street, but also taking out several other top awards, including Sponsor's Choice and Top Retro Tech. Competing in just about everything from the dyno cell to the burnout pad and meeting the extremely strict criteria for Grand Champion, this ute took out the prestigious award this year alongside some hefty competition. The adrenaline was pumping when the newly crowned Grand Champion gave it up for the spectators. With an atmosphere that is electric and a crowd fixation for horsepower, the bucket load of Australia's best vehicles makes the Summer Nats weekend the #1 horsepower show not to be missed. Street Commodores hopes to see you there next year for Summer Nats 22.
There aren't many cars left on the cruise route, and Summer Nats 21 is winding down. We've run out of time for this edition of Street Commodores Live. So safe driving, and we'll catch you next month.